Hello there, everyone. Welcome to yet another Teach Kevin Your Thing session. Today's session, we'll be learning about building hybrid web apps with Daniel. So let's meet our teacher, Daniel. How you doing, Daniel?
I'm very well, thank you. It's a real pleasure to be here. It's a bit of a grey day in the UK, but this makes it all so much brighter.
Oh yeah, it's also a rainy day over here in Nigeria as well. So I guess we're sharing that. Yeah. So if, can we have like a little bit of introduction to who Daniel Roe is, what you've been doing, what you do now, and any other thing you want to share.
Sure. So, who I am,
Mm-hmm.
deep inside. So I'm on the core team of Nuxt. So which is a web framework for building web apps, and I guess we'll talk about that a little bit later. I'm originally from the US, but I live and otherwise reside in the UK, in the Northeast. I've got three cats and a dog. Um, I love tea and coffee, and I've got a cup here with me to assist in the coziness of the season. um, and yeah, I think I love doing exploring the bleeding edge and
Mm-hmm.
doing magic on the web. That's the kind of thing that makes me excited.
Nice. So you are both tea and coffee. That's good. Not all. You go with
Tea and
either one.
coffee and cats and dogs. I'm a both
Yeah,
and kind of guy, not either or.
I like it. I like it. I'm a cat person, though I don't have any cats, but
Hmm.
yeah, that's really cool. So you mentioned you are the core team of Noxt. So what were you doing before now? Like before the Noxt team, like
Yeah.
what was that before that?
Um, so,
Hmm.
before Nuxt, I
Hmm.
was the I had a small software as a service startup.
Okay.
It was in the HR space, so it was providing an employee benefit for companies who wanted to help their employees who either were working parents or wanted to think about what it was to be a working parent or part of a working parent relationship. So
Okay.
that was lots of fun.
Nice.
But sort of we built it on Nuxt, which is how I got started helping out with the Nuxt project.
Hmm.
And But yeah, that was lots of fun. I love being in the startup ecosystem, coming up
Hmm.
with an idea, working to find the fit
Yeah.
with the market, and then making it happen. For me, that's a lot of what tech is about. Is that sort of the magic of idea to reality.
Hmm. Yeah. Totally. That makes a whole lot of sense because so what about Nox was because you mentioned you were using Nox at your um startup. So what made you pick Nox over any other um alternatives out there?
So, well, here's the thing. Before that,
Hmm.
I ran a small agency, creative agency. We
Hmm.
started first helping businesses figure out what their message was. So very
Hmm.
focused on words, and we always were very focused on words and ideas. But over time, we added much more tech um, implementation. So everything from the sort of digital art to
Hmm.
branding to design. And we built our apps and apps for clients in a number of different technologies. But I still remember the day I discovered Nuxt.
Hmm.
And we had been doing work with Vue in the old way, where you pull Vue in from a CDN,
Hmm.
and but you have the actual raw Vue code,
Hmm.
templates, and so on in HTML. And then the CDN comes and mounts and transforms that. So we had done some work like that, which was very easy to add to existing apps like WordPress sites or sort of Laravel installations. It was great.
Hmm.
But I wanted to be able to have server rendered HTML, and I was searching for Vue frameworks, and one of the first I found was Nuxt. And trying it, it was really love at first sight. I thought this fits everything that we need. The only
Mm-hmm.
thing that was tricky as a complete newcomer
Mm-hmm.
was deployment. So how do you
Mm-hmm.
deploy a Node app? And if you're used to the sort of WordPress PHP style deploy, where you just effectively copy things up
Yeah.
and rely on uh, the web server to sort of run
Yeah.
the code on request, hosting a Node app is a little bit different.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yes, that's how we discovered Nuxt for the first time, and it really fit our needs. And I remember telling one of my team, my main web dev, I basically said, I'm sorry, this project that we've just started, it was a medical repatriation
Mm-hmm.
company. I said the website for them, we are actually. I know you've started building it in this other framework. We're going to switch it all to Nuxt.
Oh wow.
And he was so annoyed, so upset at me,
Mm-hmm.
understandably.
Yeah.
But he, after about a week, he was actually really glad. And even though effectively we lost a week of work,
Mm-hmm.
we made up for it down the line, because it was just so much cleaner, so much faster to develop.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, it was love at first sight as far as I was concerned.
Nice, nice, nice. I like it. So the title for today is building hybrid web apps. So you've told us what Nuxt is a little bit, but what are hybrid web apps, so to speak? Like what's the term? Like what's it for?
Yeah. So well, I think we're in an age of granularity. So we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about when you're deploying an app, you'll have maybe a static app, but you might have some kind of dynamic content. You might have an API for it, for
Okay.
example. So uh, as an example, we're actually a small team of us are working on building a new client for Mastodon, the
Okay.
federated social
Mm-hmm.
posting network.
Yeah.
And we're building it in Nuxt, and so you want to have some kind of static deployment, because it doesn't need to be server rendered, and it's really based on the user's authentication. But you also need to have some kind of server routes to do things like register OAuth apps and
Mhm.
perform the authentication side of things. So
Yeah.
you need this sort of granularity, the idea that some things are static, some things are server.
Mm.
And so Nuxt really takes that idea to its logical conclusion. You can have bunches of routes in your app which have different behaviors.
Mhm.
Some of them might be not server rendered, so there's just a shell that's served up HTML, and it has metadata for search engines, but everything else happens on the client.
Okay.
You might have a route which is fully server rendered. You might have API routes. Um, and some of those API routes might need to have cores enabled and some not. Some might have custom cache headers. Some might be use incremental static generation. So the first time the route is accessed, it sort of takes the response and saves it in an edge cache, and it never gets server rendered again. That response is used from that point forward. Some might have more complex needs of revalidation. The whole thing, um, I, I could get into lots of details, but
Mhm.
the point is, just for any route or combination of routes, you can granularly add rules about how it should be rendered. That's what I mean by when I'm talking about hybrid. So you can have most of your app static, but some pages not,
Oh.
and
Mhm.
or partially cache them.
Mhm.
Revalidate every minute or something like that.
Right.
Um, so I think that's quite fun, and it enables a lot of more advanced patterns when you're building an app. It's not all or nothing, as it maybe used to be before when building Vue or Nuxt apps, where you had to decide, is it static, is there a
Okay.
server, and those were the only two questions you really had to ask.
Wow. So what you're saying right now is with Nuxt, I could have some of my pages be statically generated, like just static sites, part of it. Then I could also have server rendered pages as well as API routes. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's
Wow.
exactly what I'm saying.
Oh, oh, so we are already getting into some Norse magic, are we? Okay, okay, that sounds fun. So So yeah, so if I want to get started like right now, what do I need to have or know first of all with Nuxt? Mm-hmm.
If you want to get started right now, you need to have Node installed,
Okay.
and you need to have an IDE, so
Mm-hmm.
VS Code or something like that.
Okay.
And now Nuxt is based on Vue, so if you know how to code in Vue, then that's a good start.
Okay.
But one of the things I love about Vue is that it basically looks like HTML, CSS, and
Mm-hmm.
JavaScript. So
Mm-hmm.
even if you don't know Vue, you should still be fine to get started um, in Nuxt if you know those three things. But um,
Yeah.
you shouldn't need any extra
Okay.
information in order to get going.
Nice. So that's just the minimum. A node, of course, if you're watching this video, chances are you're a developer and you are using JavaScript, you're using Node already, so that should be like a check already done. Then Vue, of course, which is easy to use. I like Vue quite a lot, so I'm biased on that, and I know it that it's easy to use Vue. It's really great. So yeah, so if you're feeling like it, I think we should just get started. Like, are we building something today?
I, well, I thought, yeah, I think that's a good idea. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not prepared this, but I thought maybe we could build your website.
Really?
You know,
So,
yeah,
uh,
your website.
oh wow. Oh, I like this one.
Not all of it.
Okay. Okay.
I realize there's probably more time than we could just do
Mm-hmm.
in the stream, but we can start
Yeah.
and see what it might be like.
Yeah. Sure. Let's go for it. Yeah. So I show your screen right now. You ready?
Great, go for
Okay.
it.
All
We'll get
right.
started. We'll get started. We'll see what we can do. See how far we can go. And I hope
Yeah.
to convince you. I hope to convince you
Yes.
that it's worth giving next a go over this. So to
Okay.
start a new Nuxt app, you use the
Mm-hmm.
nuxi command. So we'll
Yeah.
just get started. So
Okay.
that should do it. That's going to create a new Nuxt app.
Okay.
And what it will do is basically clone the project into this directory.
Okay. So Noxy is the command and TKYT is the folder,
Nuxt
right?
is the command.
Okay.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It also supports custom templates and things like that.
Oh,
So
okay.
if you were to go to a website like nuxt.new,
Mm-hmm.
you'll see that there are some different templates you might get started with. So you could start your
Okay.
own Nuxt module, or you
Oh.
could create like a blog type site, a content driven
Mm.
site. And there's more stuff coming here.
I like it.
You can even create your own templates, but
Mm-hmm.
anyway, so there's
Yeah.
lots of stuff ready to get going there.
Nice.
But for now, yeah, Nuxi in it. That's all you need to run.
Mm-hmm.
So if I then open that up in my in Visual Studio Code,
Mm-hmm.
you should see we basically start with 4 files. So app.view is the sort of Nuxt. Let me just install some dependencies here.
What is that magic? Oh, I don't know.
That is the magic for PNPM,
Oh,
which is the package manager I'm using here. If you're not
okay.
using PNPM, you don't need to worry about that.
Okay.
So I'm just installing some dependencies. You can also run yarn or
Mm-hmm.
npmi or whatever it is that you want. And I'm going to start the dev server in the background as well.
Okay.
Okay. Now this is a Vue file. So if I know you're familiar with it, but
Mm-hmm.
basically you can have these different blocks in a Vue file. You can have
Mm-hmm.
your styles, you can have your template and your script.
Yeah.
And actually, often I like nowadays to put the script at the top.
Yeah, me too.
Um,
For
yeah,
some reason.
it feels nice, doesn't it? It feels like
Yeah.
you're doing it in a bit of a um, uh, maybe setting something up in your script,
Yep.
um,
Then you show it in
and
your view, then you style it later
and
on.
then exactly, and then you show it. So it feels logical.
Yeah.
So I mean, if you're getting started off the bat, you have this Nuxt welcome component, which is
Okay.
there. So if we were to go and have a look at that in the browser, this is what your Nuxt
Mm.
welcome component
Pretty
looks like.
I like it.
Um, that was beautiful.
Yeah, it's
But you probably
beautiful.
wouldn't want to deploy that. But
I know, I know.
the team who designed that, they did an
Yeah,
excellent job.
it's amazing, really. Like it's like I like that they spend time doing this, even though it's not something you're going to use, but they just give you something really, really branded and nice. I love it.
Yeah, it feels good. And the
Mm-hmm.
thing, of course, to click is the documentation. That's almost certainly what you want to
Mm-hmm.
have a look at, because it's going to give lots of information. The most useful section, by the way, I mean, obviously, all of it is good depending on what you're interested in.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the best places to start is this directory structure, because so much of what Nuxt does is unlocked by having a file in place. So
Mm-hmm.
you don't necessarily have to configure it in code. You can if you want to, but if you just create a folder with some content, it will do some magic for you, and
Okay.
you can really explore what those things are just by going down the list of that directory structure.
Nice.
But I'll show you like all that we should need to do for today. So this is your sort of view file. So if I were to save that and we switch back to our example, we've
Mm-hmm.
got a really exciting site there.
Yeah.
Um, the nuxt config file, you can any configuration that you need to set for your app, you can do here.
Mm-hmm.
So there's lots of things that you could set, and
Okay.
again, you'll find the documentation in this nuxt config file
Mm-hmm.
section. You can see all
Nice.
the possible values, and actually, all of this is generated from the code. So,
Wow.
for example, this documentation here, you can actually access by starting to type it here, and you can see all the actual docs for this config, just exactly the same content
Wow.
in your editor, which I think is nice. You don't need to
Yeah.
necessarily context switch if you're needing to find out something.
Mm-hmm.
Nuxt is a dev dependency, or at least it doesn't really matter, because when
Mm.
you build your Nuxt app, none of your dependencies in your app matter. So it all gets packaged up into a special folder with its own dependencies that can be deployed somewhere.
Oh. Okay.
And the final, I know, I'll show you about that.
All right.
But basically, yeah. So basically, an output folder is created along here, and that has its own node modules, which
Okay.
is like a trimmed down version of not only your production dependencies. Sorry, not the production dependencies you'd get if you installed with npm,
Mm-hmm.
but actually less content. We use something
Okay.
called versal NFT, that traces down only the files that are used. So it can get rid of things like readmes and
Mm.
example code, even types. You don't really
Oh.
need to
Yeah.
deploy type declarations to
Yeah. You
production.
don't.
So
Okay.
it's a really cool
Nice.
feature.
Cool. That's like
And then
okay. That's like Nox doing some what's it called? Just checking out the dependencies and using only what is being used.
exactly.
Cool.
So if I'm going to kill my devs over there, and we'll just build the app,
Mm-hmm.
and that's going to. Oh, I have a module on my own system. I should probably
Okay.
disable this. So the
Another magic, huh?
this is not part of the
Ye-
Nuxt experience, but
yes.
I have a in in your system you can have something called a .nuxt.rc file, which sets
Okay.
global config for your Nuxt. So I actually have my own custom
Oh.
module here, which I've written, which is
Okay.
just a TypeScript file on my disk.
Mm-hmm.
And basically, whenever I run any Nuxt project, that module gets added in, and it does some things that I find really useful for debugging,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm often handling reproductions. So it just sets that up for me automatically. So I'm just going to
Okay.
disable that. That's something you need to be worried about.
Okay. Okay.
Uh,
That's fine. That's the
and you should
core team experience right there.
that's right.
Yeah.
So basically, this is the output you get.
Oh,
So you get the
okay.
start output folder,
Mm-hmm.
and it's got your public files. Those get deployed up to your CDN or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's going to be accessed by the browser.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have your server. In this case, this is being deployed as a node server because I'm not running this in a Versal CI or Netlify CI or whatever.
Okay.
So this is just a node server that I could start like this, start it like that,
Oh.
and then we have exactly the same. Um, it's not a very interesting
Mm-hmm.
site yet, but obviously we have got our server running locally, and you see it has got its own node modules,
Yeah.
which is sort of ultra minimal. So it doesn't have any of the type declarations. We're using this file, but only this one, and so that's the only one that's included from this particular dependency. And the same would be
Interesting.
true with every other one too. So
Nice.
that's what you get. You get a sort of minimal output folder that you can just, if you're doing a Docker build or something,
Mm-hmm.
that's the only thing you need to have in your finished image. Nothing else.
Okay. Cool. That's smart. I
So
like it. Um,
all
could you? I've been seeing Nitro 1.0.0. What is Nitro?
yes, because we have got these three different
Yeah,
names here.
Nuxi, Nox, Nitro. Yeah. So I guess the Nuxi is the CLI. I know Nox right now because it's the framework, but Nitro is the not so familiar.
Yeah, absolutely. So Nitro is the server framework, the server engine for Nuxt
Okay.
3. But it's not just the server engine for Nuxt 3. It's actually a project on its own now.
Oh,
So if
okay.
you have a look at UnJS Nitro, the repository,
Mm-hmm.
this is actually now a server framework that anybody can use with any framework. So you can use it with React or Svelte or Angular. There's an Angular framework at the moment which is using Nitro. Um, so a lot of the things that I'm talking about from the server point of view, including root rules and hybrid deployments, we've
Mm-hmm.
actually built them in such a way that anyone can benefit from them. It's not just if you use Nuxt. And we would
Mm.
really welcome
Yeah.
contributions from anyone and would welcome usage by anyone as well. This isn't, we're not just trying to make Nuxt amazing. We're hopefully trying to help the ecosystem too as a whole.
Yeah.
So Nitro is the thing that handles the server side. So if you think of Nuxt as Nuxt being a build tool,
Okay.
and your Nuxt app being the view side of things,
Mm-hmm.
anything that's server related, which we'll see a little bit about what that might be in a moment, but anything that's server related is probably going to be handled by Nitro
My
rather
Nitro.
than, yeah.
Nice.
And Nuxt obviously configures Nitro, so it's not something you have to set up separately. It's just, but you will spot, for example, in your Nuxt config there is this Nitro config, and you can
Oh,
you can configure Nitro in um,
okay.
lots of ways.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
okay. So, I I see that you're also using Vite for the dev experience, right?
Yes.
Okay,
So
good.
by default, when you start Nuxt, we have Vite powering that behind the
Okay.
scenes. You can also switch to Webpack if you want.
Mm.
If you do that, you need to install another dependency. You need to add in Nuxt Webpack Builder as a dependency of your project.
Okay.
Um,
So,
and that's that, for people who have code that needs Webpack or other
mhm.
dependencies in their tree that uses it. But one of the things that doing that, supporting both Vite and Webpack, has done for us is it's meant that everything we build has to be generic. So
Mhm.
we have to write our code in such a way that it could work with any builder.
Okay.
So in fact, you can create your own. You could do my builder, whatever you have.
Mhm.
There's some kind of bundle function. Um, you can actually pass at
Oh,
this point to the builder command. So you could say, um, "This is what we're going to use to handle it." What is it?
yeah. Types, I
Bundle.
guess. Oh,
Oh, it needs to be an async function.
Yeah.
But basically, we could do that, and if we ran that code, like
Good.
it would be it won't work. I mean, obviously, there's no kind of
Yeah.
um,
Yeah,
but
sure.
it would work. So it is possible to create our
Yeah.
own.
Custom builder.
Um,
Like, yeah, I like
yeah,
it. That makes a lot of sense. So I'm thinking the Webpack version you're supporting is 5, right? Webpack 5?
that's right. So
Okay,
if you
good.
install Nuxt Webpack Builder, it's going to pull in Webpack 5,
Okay.
and it's going to that's the only dependency you need to add. But yes, that's what will
Nice.
happen.
Cool. Like, it's exciting what you all have built with Nuxt. So yeah, so let's see some more um content on the screen except tests. Can we?
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be nice, wouldn't it? So I
Yeah.
thought,
Mm-hmm.
and this again, this might be a silly idea. We'll find out very soon whether it's a bad idea or not. But I thought we'd just start from your site because
Mm-hmm.
I think, are you using Tailwind?
Yep. Pro tailwind here.
Okay, so
Yeah.
let's get going with Tailwind then. Let's add Nuxt Tailwind Tailwind. Tailwind CSS. I can't even remember what it is. Basically, we have Nuxt modules.
Okay.
So if you're wanting to get started with Nuxt, there are loads and loads and loads of different modules you can add sort of zero config support
Mm-hmm.
for lots of different things. In this particular case, we want Tailwind.
Okay.
Okay, that's the command. It's Tailwind CSS.
Okay.
But
Tailwind
you can
CSS.
also see lots of other modules and details there. So we'll add that.
Okay. Cool.
Um, I do love PNPM, by the way. It's so fast. And we'll get started
Yeah.
with that once more when we've got this.
Okay.
So we're going to add this to our modules list.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just going to enable Tailwind CSS for us by
Oh,
default, pretty much. So I
really?
think if we were to go into app and do something like class font bold, then we should see in
It,
our localhost. Let's refresh that. Yeah,
yeah.
it's bold. So it's everything's up and working for us.
Wow, that was
That
minimal.
means that means if I now get started with your site,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to copy it,
Mm-hmm.
and we'll go into our app.vue here. We'll paste your site. Okay, so this
Mm-hmm.
is your website, except we get rid of body.
Mm-hmm.
Let's rename that like may. Probably have a
Mm.
main. Do you already have a main somewhere else? Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I
we
do
don't want
have a
to do
name.
that. And you've got your header. I'll make it a little bit smaller so it's still readable.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there we go. Okay. So I'm just going to save that, and let's
Yeah,
see what happens.
yeah. Oh,
Okay. So
okay.
we're mostly there, right? So this
Mm-hmm.
is already looking
Yeah,
like your website. Okay, that's cool.
that's cool.
But there are some things that aren't there yet.
Yeah.
So this is just HTML. Obviously, I've just pasted in HTML, and that's one of the things I love about Vue is that it just works with HTML. But
Yeah.
we can make some of this a little bit. We can set up maybe some of the
Mm-hmm.
other cool things. Um, right. What would we want to do? So I think we've got your blog. That might be a good place to start. At the moment,
Mm-hmm.
all of these links, no matter what we go to in the browser, is going to be the same page.
Yeah.
As we have app.vue, which is going to handle every single incoming request.
Oh,
So if we want to set this up with
okay.
some kind of, I don't have your custom green
Mm-hmm.
set up yet,
That's
but this
fine.
at least gives us some kind of green.
Mm-hmm.
So if we want to get set up with some kind of routing system,
Yeah.
we'll want to create a pages directory. And that will mean we can have our index page, which will have just that homepage content.
Okay.
And we might also want to have that blog page.
Okay.
And we have some content here. We'll call it blog. And basically, when you do this, you create this pages directory. Nuxt will then restart. It's complaining because there was nothing in the file, but it will restart because it's now going to enable this pages module.
Nice.
So that means now we have the concept of different pages in the application. So this, I think, let's see, what is the,
Oh.
oh, there's no page. Yeah, that's right. So what is the page of your, what's the difference here? So it looks like we have got, the header is the only thing that stays the same across
Mm-hmm.
your site. So
Yeah.
that's probably the only thing we want to keep in app.vue. Everything else can go into a page.
Mm-hmm.
So this section here, I think probably all the way through to, no, we've got a footer.
Yeah, we do have the footer.
You have a footer, which is great. But if we grab this whole main bit,
Mm.
let's pull that and stick it into uh, index. So that makes sense as your home
Yeah.
page, I think.
Mm-hmm.
You with me
Yeah.
so far?
Yeah,
So
sure. I
what we
like
should
it.
now have is we've got this is showing up on your page. I think we need to get some pictures coming in. Uh, I've not saved app. Let's save it. So now we should have nothing because we've moved it into this page and there's blank here. So what we do now is stick nuxt page in. Now nuxt page is a special component. You can see my IDE knows it exists. It takes some props. You could give it a key. You could tell it. You could manually specify some stuff for it.
Okay.
But if I put next page in, then now if I go back to the home page, the homepage content is showing up, and
Mm-hmm.
on the blog page, just this text blog is there,
Yep.
which is cool, right? That's what we want.
Yeah.
And so we've got routing set up in our app. If we want to simplify this content a little bit, let's take this header component out and create a component. So we're going to separate that out into the site header. Now, anything pasted in this components directory is going to be available for your app to use anywhere. So you can do whatever you want in this file. And then we can, so for example, we could take this header, paste it in here as our component. And we can maybe add some interactivity in a
Mm-hmm.
second. But like for now, we've got this component, the site header. And now in app, if I'm going to use this, if I'm going to be sort of, I can actually add the site header into my page. And Nuxt will be aware that that exists
Mm-hmm.
and allow me to use it in my app. And so you can see the site header is there. Now, this doesn't mean that this is imported everywhere or it's globally registered. If
Mm-hmm.
you're familiar with how Vue adds
Yeah.
components, Nuxt will actually notice that it's being used and generate an import for me. So it will do something like this behind the scenes. It will generate this code, and so it means that you still get bundle splitting,
Okay. Cool.
but it just basically makes my life easier.
Yep.
And I could do absolutely the same thing with the footer. We'll create a footer. Uh, Paste that in, and we now have site footer. Feels pretty
Mm-hmm.
clean and minimal at this point.
Yep.
Um, I don't really need to have any styles at this point because the Tailwind is taking care of everything for me. So it should mean that I've just got a site ready to go out of the box. But the thing
Yeah.
that's annoying me, to be honest, is all these pictures. So I think
Yep.
if we just grab the image link, if you don't mind me downloading that,
That's
um,
fine.
in a Nuxt project, anything you put in the public directory is going to be accessible. Um, just it's going to be hosted alongside everything else. So I'm just going to go into that public directory and download your uh, your picture.
Mm-hmm.
Is that what it's called? Uh, in here, yeah, it seems to be it. Oh, but
Yeah.
it's in an assets folder. So we'll just can I do this? Oh, I'll create a new folder. Move it in.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully what we now have is
Uh,
picture. yet turning up. Why not? Assets. Can't load the image.
Maybe the format or something. Yeah, it is loading up in here.
That should be fine.
Hmm.
What's going on?
Do you think you need to restart the server or something?
Oh, I can try that.
Okay.
Yeah, try that. But why might that be an issue? Anyway,
Yeah, I know. Sometimes.
it might be my yeah.
Okay.
It could be my web browser as well. Let's
Mm-hmm.
see.
Maybe. Okay.
Oh, you're
Yeah.
right. It was restarting the server.
Yeah. That's
We've
cool.
got a picture, and we've got some nice social images here that I think you must also be hosting on your domain.
Mm-hmm.
So let's actually just grab those two. Where's that coming from? The GitHub, YouTube, LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see if we've got any better. Oh, Twitch we need as
Oh,
well.
nice. Looking
Okay,
good.
so there we go. I feel we're sort of
Mm-hmm.
we're getting there.
Yeah.
Um,
I,
there's not a lot of reactivity yet. We probably can get to that
mm-hmm.
in the blog post, for example. But you might well find that what you want to do, for example, with stuff like these
Yeah.
list items, is you could say stuff like, well, actually, this is very repetitive, and we can. This is almost certainly what you're doing behind the scenes, of course.
Yeah, sure.
But we've got our sort of alt, our source, our link,
Mm-hmm.
and actually, we probably can just pull that out into the script and do something like social links. And then each of those link is going to be, in fact, I wonder if GitHub Copilot will help me with this. Oh, isn't that incredible? GitHub Copilot is suggesting ant-foo
Yes,
as,
Anthony.
uh, as your Twitter handle. So what can I say?
No
Um,
copilot, no.
exactly. I think not on this occasion. Okay, so
Yeah.
let's just grab these links, and that seems to be all of them. So I'm just going to use multi-cursor
Mhm.
to grab them out. And okay, so we've got some links. Let's create some objects. We'll say, okay, we've got some links. We also want to grab some sources for these images. So 1, 2, how many do we have? 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's grab
Mhm.
those image sources. Great, so we've got our images. We also need the name for the alt text, right? So we want to have that 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we've got a name. Okay, and so now we can simply pull this out and say we want a list item for link in social links.
Mhm.
And then each one is going to have an href which is bound to link href. That's going to have an image which has a source of link source. And we have an alt which will be link name. And so that would do it for us, right? So we can then get rid of all of this extra code. Should be able to save that. And what we should see is, oh, that's your actual website. We should see
Okay.
the actual content now coming up exactly as we expected.
Yeah.
We can do a little bit more. So Nuxt actually supports, Nuxt has a component called nuxt-link,
Okay.
which will do things like I can get rid of target blank. And if I have a look at the site, we're still rendering everything. If I inspect that element, then Nuxt has already added
Oh.
a no opener and no referrer tags to that link, because this is an external link, and we can know that we don't want that. We could actually keep target blank in there as well.
Mm-hmm.
But Nuxlink is able to handle external links as well as internal links within your
Hmm.
application.
Nice.
There's even a new feature that you could enable, in your Nuxt config. There's a few experimental features we're still working on, and one of them is cross-origin prefetch. So this would actually enable prefetching those external links, yeah, if you wanted
Mm-hmm.
to, which means your browser would be able to perform the initial request to
Okay.
these social networks. So when you click it, it would feel instantaneous, and it
Wow.
would only do that when you had extra time. So
Mhm.
we're not going to enable that. It's a
Sure.
bit experimental for the moment, but still quite useful. So
Yep, it is. Yeah,
now,
we are doing great on rapidness. Like you are building my entire homepage so quickly, and it took me quite a while to build it, but I get it. It's fine. It's good.
so I thought
Mm-hmm.
we might go. Oh, the built with Astro. I'm just going to change that because that's
Oh, well, yeah,
honestly,
built.
obvious.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I've
Built
got
with Nox.
nothing against Astro at all.
Yeah, that's
Just as
fine.
we are building this in Nuxt, we might
Yeah,
as
sure.
well
Definitely.
just say nuxt.com for the moment.
Mm-hmm.
There we go, built with Nuxt. Okay. And we could do, exactly the same thing with these links that we did with the other, but that's
Mm-hmm.
more of a view thing rather than
Yeah.
Nuxt. And again, it's not really fair because I'm taking that like the HTML of your site, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you've
Yep.
done exactly that. But how would we do your blog? So here you go. You've got all these different blog articles, and they're great, right?
Mm-hmm.
So um, yeah, what are we going to do with that? So we have got the general sort of structure here. So we can grab that and go to the blog index and paste that in just as the sort of general structure. But we want to actually get rid of most of the content because this should all be coming from the individual blog entries.
Yeah.
So if I just get rid of everything but one list item, that should be, is that right? You've got an A link.
Okay.
Oh, and what is going on? So we have an A link there, and then oh,
So
that.
yeah,
What is
list.
that? Is that
What's
a?
so there's a list item.
Why is there this A
I
link?
don't think I've even inspected. So I think the A link should be on the read more sort of.
I think there is one there as well.
Yeah.
I think I think this might be there by accident. I'm just going to get rid of it
Okay.
for now.
Yeah,
So I
I'll
think what
check
we
it.
should now have is a single example of your and I think by the way some of this stuff like you have got a custom green color.
Mm-hmm.
If I had your Tailwind config, I could paste that in and it would just sort of. In fact, is your website open source?
No, but it's good.
Nope. Okay, no,
Yeah.
no, that's totally fine. That's I'm not asking, not
Yeah.
asking for it.
Yeah.
Um, well, let's create some blog posts,
Mm-hmm.
so we can actually start to render this with a Nuxt native because I can't just copy and paste your blog post in.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. So let's get going with. I'm going to add another module. Does my keyboard keep on making it caps? I'm going to add Nuxt content. Now, Nuxt content is a library that, well, it's another Nuxt module, but what it will do is it will get us started with using Markdown.
Okay.
Um, it's this one here. So
Mm-hmm.
it lets us create Markdown, in fact, create Markdown pages,
Mm-hmm.
use Vue components in them, and so on.
Nice.
So what we're going to do is add Nuxt content again to our Nuxt config and restart our dev server.
Mm-hmm.
And now I can do something like I'm going to create a content directory and I'm going to create a blog folder and we can have um, building my site in Nuxt as
Mm-hmm.
the first entry. I'm sorry, I'm being cheeky.
It's fine. I get it. I get
You should
it.
keep your site the way it is, but I'm just having fun with this. Okay, so
You're just
we can,
tempting me. I get it.
exactly.
Yeah.
One day I'm going to check back and see
Yeah.
see what. So we're going to have. Let's see. We need a title and a description. That's what we've got there, and
Mm-hmm.
we can get rid of that spam. And then there's a read more link, right? That makes sense. So we probably want to just clean that as well. So what we probably want to do is we need to have a URL, and we need to have a time. We need to have some title and content. So let's just give it a title. How I built my site in Nuxt 3. This was great fun. We built it on a stream together, and then we're just going to add some random text, and then more random text, then some more random text. Okay, there we go. We've got a site. And so actually Nuxt content will enable us to just render these pages. If I were to say create a new file and call it slug. With Nuxt file routing, you can obviously create pages like blog index that's going to render blog. And I could create an about page or something. But you can also use these square brackets to represent dynamic parameters. So
Okay.
in fact, in this case, I could probably just have slug. So in this case, that's going to be a dynamic parameter. Whatever comes after blog is going to be treated as a slug. It's not going to have any slashes, because for that I would need a catch-all, which is what the three dots are for. But this is a dynamic parameter, and I could also do something like that, and that would mean
Oh,
that it has to match that pattern. It would have to
yeah.
have page dash, and then whatever comes after page is going to be the slug. But in this context, I don't think we actually want that. We just want to have a basic component here. And so if I were to say, here's my blog entry, and if I were to update these links here so that they are all Nuxt links, then, oops, I have to update the closing one as well. So if I'm updating all my links so that they're Nuxt links, that enables, by the way, not a hard reload. It means that it will be spoke with a client-side route. So if I were to click this, not found. Why is it not found? I'm pretty sure I just created the path. There we go. So basically, you can see we're doing this sort of client-side routing. We're going through to that particular blog page.
Nice.
And actually, Nuxt content out of the box ships with a component called content doc. So I should be able just to stick content doc in here, and it should. But there is nothing there. What's building my site in Nuxt? Let's update the link to that.
Okay, yeah.
We're just going to just do that. So now if I click through, you can actually see the content of that
Wow,
blog
magic.
already coming through, just because of the URL matches. So you can just it will try and read it, try and infer it just by default.
Okay.
Now you might want something that's more specific in terms of and you could do that. You could pass a specific path in here, and configure how it's going to render. But that's probably okay for the moment. But what we want to do is get a list of blog posts, because this isn't the right kind of data at this point. So we're going to do a query. We're going to go up into script setup and say we want a list of blogs. So we're going to use a query content composable, which is produced by Nuxt content.
Okay.
Now, you'll find that in the documentation for Nuxt content. If you were to get started there, you'd find how to get started. You could create content. You could use that content doc thing that I talked about, and then you can also find out how to query. You use this query content, and so on. So you can see all the details there about how to do it. But the thing to point out is that just by enabling Nuxt content as a module in my project, Nuxt knows that this is a valid import. So it's giving me type information for it. And just like components can be auto-imported anywhere in your app, so can composables too. So you
Okay.
can actually
Yeah. For folks who don't know what um composables are, can you just give us like a crash on that?
absolutely.
Yeah.
So a composable is it's like a utility that you can import that gives you functionality. I think it's
Mm.
probably um,
Yeah.
the idea. The reason we started calling them composables is that when Vue 2 went from the options API
Okay.
to the composition API, it was a change that looked like this. So if we had a file that was a Vue file, previously this Vue file in Vue 2 would have looked like this. It would have
Oh.
had a default export, and then would have had something like a mounted hook.
Yep.
Uh, and you could have done something there, and it
Mm-hmm.
would have had a computed object, and you could have said, my val is going to be this.
Mm-hmm.
And you can sort of there was a lot of magic going on. So you could do this dot my val, and you could actually access this kind of object. But one of the things about this is that it wasn't very composable. So the every computed property lived in this object, even if they were unrelated.
Mm-hmm.
You might have some methods which did something, but as your component got bigger, you'd have maybe a method that deals with my val, but you might also have other methods that dealt with some other kind of feature.
Mm-hmm.
And you might have bits of this object which were actually really irrelevant. So you might have a computer property that was only used in a method, but it was exposed via this to everything. There were
Mm-hmm.
lots of issues with this in terms of building apps that were extendable
Yeah.
and intuitive as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so with Vue 3 came a new default. So instead of producing this kind of thing, there was now a setup hook. And this setup function ran at the same time that the created function would have run in the composition in the options API.
Mm-hmm.
But all of this could be expressed in this place. So you could do something like const myval is computed. It was a method you could call, and then you could stick that value in there. And then instead of mounted, you could do on mounted, and you could say my val. You could just access my val directly. So um,
Mm-hmm.
and the thing about this is that whatever the setup function then returned was accessible to the component. So in this case, it could return something like hey, and then in the component you could actually then use hey, um, and it would be hey. But you couldn't actually use myval
Mm-hmm.
because it was not returned. So
Yeah.
it doesn't exist. And if I made this lang ts, then it's going to throw me a type error as well.
Of course.
So this change ushered in a new era of composables because now you could extract this into a feature. So you might call this my use my feature, and it's going to be a function that does that. Now that means I can actually replace this here with simply use my feature. So
Oh.
at this point, this is a compose. We've just written a composable together. It's something now that isn't tied to this particular component.
Mm-hmm.
It's a function that can be. I could publish it as an npm package.
Mm-hmm.
I realize it's not very exciting,
Yeah, no,
but I can publish it as an
it's good.
npm
It's
package,
good. It's good.
and so we could use this. You could use this anywhere, and so it's composable. So it's like this little building block that you could use anywhere. And so one of the most popular libraries is vue.use. So vue.use is a library of loads and loads of composables that you can actually use in your app.
Mm-hmm.
So everything from accessing data about the network or state. So you could use local storage, or you can get composables to enable you to use a gamepad. So I mean,
Mm-hmm.
hugely productive, and basically this composition API enables this kind of use.
Nice.
So you can simply say, uh, use gamepad, and then you get access to these utilities that it exposes, but you
Mm-hmm.
don't have to worry yourself about the internals, about how that works,
Mm-hmm.
which is, I think it's really powerful. It's really
Yep,
powerful.
you're
So
right.
that's what I mean by composables. So in your app, you get access to composables like this, which are often prefixed with use, because what they mean is it needs to be run inside a setup, and it often exposes some kind of value. So it might return like my val, and then you could say my val is use my feature, and then you get access to it like that.
Oh, cool.
Um, so within your app, you can actually create a composables directory, and we'll call this my feature. And then all you need to do is export your composable from that file. Notice, by the way, that computed and onMounted are auto-imported by Nuxt, so you don't have to worry about importing these common
Wow,
utilities yourself.
nice.
And actually, at this point, we don't need to import use my feature either, because actually Nuxt will auto import it because it's in the composables directory. So you just get access, you can create all your features and composition utilities there
Mhm.
and use them seamlessly throughout your application, which I
Wow.
think is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
But the same is true with utilities exposed by the modules and other libraries that you use that are built for Nuxt.
Nice.
And
Thank
I
you.
should say, you can also do this. You can also configure this yourself. If you have some kind of library that doesn't have an Nuxt module, you could do something. You could basically enable some kind of more complex setup. So
Mm-hmm.
you might say, I want to import this thing from that library, and all you would need to do is save that, and then you can use this thing everywhere in your app. But I mean, that's really an advanced case. In most cases, there should be a Nuxt module that does it for you. You shouldn't
Mm-hmm.
need to be configuring it yourself.
Yeah.
But in this case, what we want is to get access to all the blogs. So if we run this command, what we should see, this is always dangerous, right? Let's
Yeah.
just see what comes back. I'm expecting a lot of data. I'm expecting lots of stuff to come back.
Yeah. Get
Yeah.
stuff.
Okay.
Yep.
So
You have
got
stuff.
lots of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I've definitely got stuff. I've got too much stuff. I don't need all of this.
Okay.
But the point is that the query is running. I'm getting access to this data.
Mm-hmm.
So all I really want is, I think I want the title and the path, and this is this thing here. The like I think that's the actual content of the. Oh, I've got an excerpt. I think probably we do want an excerpt.
Okay.
But maybe just the description is good enough.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's actually limit this a little bit, because we don't want to have all of this coming. So we want to have the, what do we say, the path and the title and the description. And is there some kind of date? No, not by default. I need to add that myself. So I could say something like, I can add some front matter.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say date. What is today's date? Um,
28th.
oh, that's
28th. Yeah. That's
I've
yeah.
just pasted some kind of string in there. So I can now pull in that date as well. Let's see what's coming out. Okay, great. So everything is now coming in that I requested. So I've got my path, my title, my date.
Yeah.
So we can
So
now,
I
yeah, sorry, go on.
noticed. Yeah. I noticed the path has an underscore prefixing the key. Is that something special? I don't know.
Um, it's how Nuxt content is at the moment choosing to expose
Oh, okay.
expose that.
Okay, that's fine.
So the well, and I've it's an interesting question.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
maybe there's some debate about how the best way is
Okay.
to expose that
Yeah,
API.
cool. Sure, that's fine.
So one thing that you'll notice is that we're querying the content here, If you go into the browser and have a look at what's happening in the network tab, refresh that page,
Mm-hmm.
you'll see that we're actually querying on the client side
Yeah.
here. You've got a network request, but you'll also see that obviously we had to serve this up in the HTML, because if I turn off JavaScript,
Mm-hmm.
where is it? There. If I turn off JavaScript, then
Yeah.
for goodness sake, that's my Vue IDE. If I turn off JavaScript, it's still in the HTML, right?
Mm-hmm.
So ugh, I'm going to turn off that extension because it's annoying me. Okay, enabling JavaScript again.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, what I therefore need to be able to do is prevent it from being called twice. And so we have this nuxt utility called use async data,
Okay.
which is a composable, as you can tell by the fact that it starts with use.
Mm-hmm.
And I can pass it a fetcher function like this one. And if I do that, nuxt is going to do two things. So the first thing is it is going to, Prettier is going to configure it like this. The first thing Next is going to do is it's going to generate a unique key, something like this,
Mm-hmm.
so that it can match this value up between server and client. So if I were to just have a quick look at the response, and we'll pull in the blog page. And if we have a look at this bit at the very end of the page, we've got some JSON in the well, it's not quite JSON, it's JavaScript, but
Mm-hmm.
it's an object which is basically inline in the HTML.
Yeah.
You can see that we've got this this hash here, which contains the content that this page needed. So it has got the slug, the title, the description, and
Mm-hmm.
so Nuxt basically performs the request on the server, but then embeds it in the HTML so that we don't have to request it again on the client side if we need to do. So if we were going to do something like unmounted console log logs, like we don't have to rerun the fetch request. We've already done it once. We
Mm-hmm.
should simply be able to see that log in the console without any
Mm-hmm.
fresh request at all. So I'll just log
Nice.
the XHR request, and you can see there's no new XHR request, but we are logging it.
Cool.
So that's the first thing use async data does. The second is if we are building a static site, it's going to be able then to, as we navigate from page to page, instead of performing the request fresh, it's going to be able to download a payload for each page, and this content can go into that payload,
Mm-hmm.
which basically can make the site really fast. You don't have to perform runtime calls to APIs if you don't want to.
Makes sense.
In this case, let's get it set up. So we want to have a list item for every blog. Makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
We want to have our link be to the blog path. We want our a date time to match the actual raw date that we're getting in. I'm just going to hide these arrows from there. We want our blog title there and our blog description there. Just checking. Is that? Oh, we're getting lots of them. Why are we getting lots of? Oh, because we switched this to be to use async data, and use
Okay.
async data will return a number of things. So it will return
Oh,
like an error object telling if there's an
okay.
error, touching a pending. Is it pending or has it happened? You can
Okay.
refresh the data. So there's lots of stuff that you can come, but basically the actual blogs are within this data
Mm-hmm.
property. So we should now be able to see that the content is coming through correctly. So we actually have the description that we put in, which is, I think, the first paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
We have, I think I might not have added the last link.
Yeah.
Let's add that. And let's see if TypeScript was trying to tell me that it was the wrong thing.
Mhm.
So if only I
Yeah.
had listened instead of just disabling that, that would have been a better thing, right?
Yep.
So basically, we now have a blog, so we can click that and go back and forth. It's not hard coded; it is actually just based
Yeah.
on that directory.
Mhm.
So here it is. If I would, let's create another one. So let's call this another post on blog, and there we go. Got another post on the blog,
Wow.
and you could do this same. We could give it a different time, maybe 24, and actually, oh yeah, I need to update the time, don't we?
Mhm.
Uh, the time should be the date, but it's not very human readable. If you just have that, it doesn't look so great. So we probably want to have some kind of uh, this is actually surprisingly difficult. Every time you need to access dates, you
Mhm.
probably want to do that in a way that makes sense for the locale of the user. So we might do something
Yeah.
like this. Const formatter is date simple date time format. That's right. Yeah. Okay. So we want to leave this undefined to respect the preference of the user.
Mhm.
And what example did you have? You had like a short
Mm.
month,
Mhm.
number, and year. So we would want the month to be short, numeric, numeric. That feels right to me.
Mhm.
And then what we probably want to do um, is we're actually not going to display this until the uh, show dates. And basically, we want to render something on the server, but then on the client side, when we know what preference the user has, we can switch it to show their preference of how like their locale's version of how that looks.
Mhm.
So on mounted, we can say show dates equals true,
Okay.
dot value equals true. And so if we don't have it, we will simply say what we say um, if dates. And then what we will do is use the formatter to format the date.
Mhm.
And actually, to be honest, we probably want to. Ooh, date value is not finite.
Mhm.
What's my problem here? Date value isn't finite. Okay, this is totally fun.
Okay.
What are we wanting? We're going to pick up a date. Oh, it's because it's formatting a string. So actually, we're going to rework this in a second, but
Mhm.
that should work, right? That should actually, yeah. So it's giving us some dates. This is probably not what we want to do. We don't have a flash coming in. So in a proper world, what we would probably do instead
Mhm.
is actually do some kind of transformation here. So in this case, Nuxt actually supports a third option for use async data. So you can do a number of things. So for example, you can watch values. So if we were querying something that needed to be dynamic, we could watch something and refresh the value based on it. We could provide defaults. So if you wanted to implement a pending state while it's loading, you could give a default value of an empty array, um, not awaited, and say lazy is true. And then what it will do is it would take a moment to refresh the data on client side, but it's not really relevant for right now. What we want to do though is transform the data. So we actually want to add a new item. So we want to basically say data.map. And we're going to basically add a new item. So we want sort of text date, something like that. Um, and what we're going to do at this point is just for the purposes of this demonstration, we're just going to say formatter, format, new date, m date. That should basically mean we can get rid of this.
Mhm.
can instead just say, what was it going to be? Text date. And that should be I'm just going
Nice.
to call this a so we should now have is
Okay.
what? Oh, I've got
Yeah.
PDF. There we go. So we've now got something
Nice.
which is rendered and also showing on the client side.
Cool.
Okay, so we've built basically the blog index page, and we probably need to do like build the blog page. Or are there any questions you have at this point? Like what are you what kind of questions might you have?
Yeah. Everything really seemed straightforward so far, and yeah, I don't think I have much questions so far.
Um, okay,
Yeah.
well here are some things. Let's see. There's some things we could do. So
Mm-hmm.
if we go into our blog page now, obviously we could spend some time like styling this,
Mm-hmm.
which we would probably do by stealing the styling from your current blog page.
Yeah.
So
So
we'd have a look and
yeah, it's mostly Tailwind Pros package. So it should
yeah,
work.
it's that's true. That's probably what we need to do. We probably need to
Yeah.
add that in order to get some of
Mm-hmm.
the beauty of the actual quote
Yeah.
of the actual like blog page. I'll
Mm-hmm.
just uh, take this article and just paste in the next content doc that we've got. So that should mean we at least have some of the content here.
Mm-hmm.
And we can swap out all the A links, of course, for Nuxt link.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, that's definitely not going to work. Let's try this. Okay, that should be working fine now for client-side nav.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so there's lots of Tailwind stuff that we could do. But one of the things you'll have noticed is that, well, this page is working fine. So it says the title of the page is How I Built My Site in Nuxt 3. And that's
Mm-hmm.
because Content Doc is handling setting the title for us.
Wow.
But on our blog index page, we probably actually do want to have some kind of title other than localhost 3000 blog.
Mm-hmm.
So for that, we can use a Nuxt composable called useHead. And useHead is going to let us handle SEO metadata. So we can add lots of stuff in here from links to metadata. But in this case, all we probably want to do is set a title.
Mm-hmm.
And this is going to be blog. So if we do that, we should see now we have a title for the site. And here we might want to say, what's your title? It says your name.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to do that as well on the basic page. In fact, we might do something more generic. So maybe in our app.vue, we can put in a title template. So we could do something like this. Title template. Now at this point, we're going to get a string. A title can come back. And if there is a title, oh, this is great. So if there is a
Mm-hmm.
title, we're going to say in front, and then we'll have like a dash.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, we'll just have that, and we'll say by default we won't have a title. So that should mean that what we now have is on your homepage you have your name,
Mm-hmm.
and on the blog page we now have
Yay.
blog dash. So there we go, and
Mm-hmm.
the same will be true of this page. It will also now have your name at the back of it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so let's see. What are some other things we might want to do? We might want to add um, some metrics, some logging, so you can see how many people come visit your website. So
Oh.
there are lots of examples here.
Mm-hmm.
Plausible is one I often use, but there are lots and lots. But just the problem is they're too easy. So like setting up plausible, you simply would add it to your Nuxt config, and it would do everything for you from that point onwards.
Wow.
But I want to show some of the things you can actually do with Nuxt. So let's just implement tracking ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to create a plugins directory. Now, everything in this plugins directory will get run when you start your app. So we'll call it tracking, and I'll add a .client suffix because I only want this to be run on client
Mm-hmm.
side, and that will just automatically handle that for me. It also supports like a .server if you want it only to be run on server side. Mm. And in here, I would want to do something like I'm going to make an API request. So I think plausible tracking. Let's just see how it works. I've never actually had to do this because
Okay.
I've always just used the module and it's just worked. But I'm pretty sure that we need to make some kind of API request.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, events API. So, okay, this is an example of like an event that you're going to be sending off to say, like there was a page view. Plausible, by the way, is privacy friendly. It doesn't track
Mm-hmm.
people. It only just tells you how many people visit the website. So let's do that. So this is the curl request, and we can use that as a basis. So what we want to do is when we load the website is make that request, and we
Mm-hmm.
probably want to do that actually um, on each route that we visit. So in this case, actually, we probably are not going to do it in a plugin, but in this case, we could say setting up plausible. And we could do something here. We could I'll just show you what you could do. Often, what you will do in a Nuxt plugin is you'll set up some kind of state, and then you'll maybe return it something that's useful um, to the app. So
Mm-hmm.
you might, in this case, like set up plausible, and then you're going to return. You can return this object with a provide key, and we could return like some state. Uh, and it could have like okay, this is contrived, but we could return something here.
Mm-hmm.
If we are doing that, by the way, you probably shouldn't make it a client only because you want it to work on the server also.
Okay.
If you do that, if you return some kind of state, then in your app, you'll then be able to use that. So you'll actually be able to what do we call it? Some state. You'll be able to get type support for that in this way. Be able to get type support for it, count, um, and be able to access that throughout the rest of your app, which can be a very useful thing if you need some kind of single source of truth value,
Mm-hmm.
which you have to perform some setup for.
Yeah.
In lots of other cases, you might not need that at all. So you might do something even like this instead. My state, and then you can use a Nuxt composable called useState, um, and give it a default value of uh, and so what this would let you then do is in your app you could access it there. So this is a sort of quick and dirty way of creating some global state across your
Mm-hmm.
application,
Yeah.
because any component that needs to access that state can just call that function and then access it, manipulate it.
Mm-hmm.
If you need something that's a bit more complex, you would use something like Pinya, which is the equivalent of Vuex in Vue 3.
Yeah.
Mm. But sorry, I am so distractible, and I don't mean to be. We were going to get
Fine.
started up with tracking.
Yeah.
So if we wanted to sort of send an event every time you visit a route in your app, we're going to do something with middleware. And we're going to call this plausible. And it's global middleware. So tell you what I mean by that. Middleware in a Nuxt app is it runs when the route changes. So if you created like some something called like auth, then you could say you could do some check if the user is logged in, and then you could do something based on that. You could either return true, and that's okay. They can go to the page, or you
Mhm.
could actually send them somewhere else. So send them to the login page, which doesn't exist. So for the sake of showing you how this works, we'll just navigate to the home page.
Mhm.
And then if we went into our blog page and said this actually needs to be authenticated, we could then use this function called define page meta to say we need to have middleware.
Mhm.
We can say that the auth middleware is going to govern this page. So that means when you try, we could pass it as an array as well if you had more middleware. So
Mhm.
that means whenever now you're trying to navigate to the blog page, so say we're here, we try and navigate to the blog page, it's actually not going to work. It's going to send me back to the home
Yeah.
page.
Mhm.
So we can implement authentication like that.
Cool.
But with a plausible thing, we want that to run on every request. We don't want to have to go in every page and say middleware plausible. We actually want this thing to run on every single request. So you can see if I were to set some kind of console log, clear my console, and we were to go to, I need to change this menu because it's not doing client side now. If we were to go to changing that, and we need the same for those. Those are internal links. So if we were to go to some of these pages, you would see that now we're actually running that middleware function, which
Mhm.
makes it the perfect location to do some kind of request. Just to say, hey, somebody visited this website. You should be aware of that. They really like that new blog post you wrote about converting a blog to Nuxt.
Mhm.
And so we can create a little event here. So
Mhm.
we can do this. We could say we need to perform a network request to this place. And Nuxt exposes a utility called $fetch, which lets you do that. So it has the same API as the browser fetch.
Mhm.
So that means it takes an object and you can set post. We want to post there. We're not going to use that user agent or that. And actually, the content type. So Nuxt, this $fetch adds some things on top of fetch. So for example, you don't have to stringify the body. You can actually just pass the data directly. So in this case, we want the page view, we want the URL, and this is actually correct. So we have access to what the URL is going to be via to.
Okay.
So you can do full path here, or even just path. Um, and we need the domain. So we're just going to use my website at the moment because I don't know what Plausible would do if I just started sending it random information about some other domain.
Mhm.
And I think that's probably, I don't particularly care about, well, I guess the screen width matters to see is it mobile or not. So we can actually just do that. And we actually only want this to be on client side. So if process server return, so that just means this is only going to be on client side.
Yeah.
So there we go. That would actually make that request. Now, if I await it, it's going to wait for the response before navigating, and I don't want to await it. I just want to make the request, and I don't particularly want to block the user from visiting. So if I do that, well, oh, bad request.
Oh.
Bad request. Why is it a bad request? Probably I have to have some kind of
Yeah. Does it need an API key or something? I don't know.
probably they probably need something.
Yeah.
Um, some other thing in the data that I'm not providing it.
Yeah.
This is let's try my actual website and grab a. Oh, I think it might be that I have an ad blocker installed. That's probably what it
Oh.
is. But if I disable that for a moment,
Mhm.
And let's just have a little look at what it posts. Oh, it actually posts a very different format. Let's this must be old data. So let's just copy that. It's what has it got? It's got like a N and U and D, and then this is I think W. Try that. It might also need some of these other things too.
Okay.
No idea what they do. Null and we can just hard code that. Seems fine. That's probably hope that works. Oh, it's
Mm.
still saying I'm missing something. I need to look into the events API. What else do they need?
Request
Oh, they have
header.
to have a user agent. They
Okay.
have to have a user agent. Okay, that's the main thing. Okay, well,
Yeah, and the X forwarded header as well.
ah,
Yeah, like
you are
three.
right. It's required.
Yeah.
Okay, I can't just ignore this stuff.
Mhm.
The
Yes, you
content
can.
type will be set automatically by fetch because it knows this is JSON. But
Hmm.
it seems like we need to pass some headers too. So we need to have X forwarded for and user agent, and then we'll just split those like this. And that's just hard coding it because
Hmm.
I don't want to be. It is working, but it's blocking it. Let's not block cause request.
Oh, no. Cause headers.
Do you know
Yeah.
what? It's saying that I can't.
Is it a plausible thing? Maybe.
It's probably because I've. Oh, that's an interesting question. Maybe they don't allow tracking localhost 3000. Maybe that's it.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
I think this should should be
Hmm.
fine. Like if you want to see how it's not going to be an issue um, with Nuxt, but I think in this case what we would therefore do is basically say if it's dev, we're going to return. Otherwise, we're going to actually make the request.
Yeah, that makes
Oh,
sense.
and let me just confirm: is the URL the same? Let's have a look. API event seems
Yeah.
right. So I think it's probably my guess at this point is it's just the fact that it's local
Hmm.
because I don't think there's any other magic here that we are sending across that we need to do. But yeah, maybe I should investigate the plausible API. The thing is, you don't actually have to do this because there is a Nuxt module for it.
Yep.
But if you needed to, this is what you would do. You'd stick it in a global middleware like this, and it's going to perform that request uh, on each change. Oh, it's because it failed. Oh, because it would perform the request on each page change. So it would
Hmm.
basically say, "Hey, we visited. Hey, we visited," and
Yeah.
so on. But in this case, I think we'll have to wait until we deploy it to see it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So now, if you wanted to build this site,
Yeah.
if you want to actually get this together and send it up somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
then you basically don't have to do a lot. This website is really ideally suited for a static site. Um, so you would just be able to run nuxt generate and send it. But let's add something dynamic that we want to actually persist. For this, we can create a server directory. We can create an API route. So it's just going to be maybe a health check. And just to tell us that our website is up and live. And we only wanted to accept GET requests. So we're going to call it GET. But you could also
Interesting.
just omit that entirely. And I'm going to insert an API route here. Now, this is hooking directly into Nitro, the server,
Mm-hmm.
as you can tell by the fact that this is server directory.
Yeah.
And actually, we can just directly return um, some values. So we'll call it success, and we could actually give it a timestamp. Is if I were to do this, and make a network request. What is it? API health. Then you're going to see that
Mm.
Nitro knows to turn that into JSON. It's given me a content type of application JSON, and it's returned. And honestly, I would in this case I probably would return a 204 response
Mm-hmm.
if I really wanted a health check, because that feels slightly more performant. This is unneeded information.
Nice. So
Mm.
just a little aside, I'm actually curious on the HTTP CLI tool you're using. Is it like a call alternative or an alias for call?
HTTP, it's this tool called HTTPy,
Oh.
or HTTP, I guess it's pronounced. It is
Mm-hmm.
very cool, and I highly recommend you use it. It's so if you wanted to do something like yeah, well, this literally this GIF is
Mm-hmm.
telling you that the answer. You can actually post JSON really easily,
Mm-hmm.
um, and you just do it with a natural language. So you can say post like that. You can just post data. You can in this case. So we've got our event. Const data is await read body
Mm-hmm.
event. So I'm just going to get whatever comes back and send it back. So we have a little mirror going on. So I'm going to post to health. Hi, true. You, oh, because I said it was get only. Let's change that.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to post some data to it, and you see that actually it's coming back like this. And
Nice.
I could actually, I think it's like that. Yeah. Now it's coming back as like the actual JSON value rather than a string.
Mm.
And you could do that. Like I think you can actually send JSON like who is bar. I think yeah. So you can do a lot of things with HTTP. It's a
Mm-hmm.
great little client.
Nice.
There's so
Thank
much.
you.
Um, curl is wonderful, obviously, but it is just a little bit more um,
It has,
painful. Um,
yeah, I definitely, but I think this one has a simpler DX to it, and it reads more human friendly.
and like you can even do headers like this.
Wow.
Um, so like, which is just really cool. We could say,
Yeah.
uh, what is it? Read header, get header, headers, event,
Mm-hmm.
um, and you can actually now see all the headers there,
Mm-hmm.
including the custom authorization header I just sent through. So
Nice.
it's very cool. It's very cool. But
Cool.
I hope you also like the sort of the server side
Yeah.
Nitro DX as well.
Yes.
The
It almost feels like notifies functions because I had Jason over teach serverless functions, so it's looking like it.
Yeah, it's
Mm.
it's a really nice thing to be able to
Yeah.
directly
Mhm.
handle the objects rather
Yeah.
than worry about stringifying them or setting response codes.
Yeah.
So in this case, for example, if I had an issue, say if data foo,
Mm-hmm.
if foo, then I'm going to throw a new error. So we have this create error utility, which actually works everywhere in your app, not just in the server routes. So
Mm-hmm.
I could say something like status code is 422, status message is invalid data.
Mm-hmm.
And now if I if I post to the health check with foo is something, it's actually going to throw the right error for me. And this is development mode, so it's actually going to send a stack back. But in production, it wouldn't. In production, the stack isn't going to be there. And I could even visit this in the browser
Mm-hmm.
and go to. Actually, uh, do. I'm just going to throw this error directly
Okay.
because I want to show you what it does in the browser, and I
Mm-hmm.
can't post it easily. It's actually going to render a nice little error message there for me in the JSON format as well.
Yeah.
So so yeah, there's a lot of stuff that you can do with the endpoint, but in this particular case, all we really want to do is say that there's a success status.
Yeah.
And now I was thinking we could build it, like just build the app and show you how it would be deployed somewhere. Does that sound good, or do you think there's some things we should add to it?
No, let's do it. I think we are an hour 34-ish gone. So definitely building at this point is superb. You've really gone into showing me everything Nox has to offer. And I am tempted, you know. I am tempted. It's really good.
So, well, thank you. So we're going to build the app, but we want to do some things. So what we want to do for a start is we want to pre-render some of it.
Okay.
We probably want to pre-render the blog pages. So all of this we can render. And we probably want, but that's API we want to keep. And I think we could also pre-render the homepage as well. Now you can configure this a little bit differently. You could do something like, remember I showed you Nitro? You could set Nitro pre-render and then
Okay.
actually pass a list of routes here.
Mm-hmm.
And by default, we can enable crawling links.
Mm-hmm.
So this would be another way to configure it. You could say, hey, I want to pre-render the homepage and then crawl every link that exists and pre-render everything, basically. Be
Okay.
one thing you could do. But in this case, I'm just going to say specifically pre-render those. I think we can also maybe set some, we could also set some headers or something. So API health, we could set some CORS headers so that anybody can call it from any website, not just from our own.
Okay.
And I think we can build that. Let's see what's going to happen. Okay, so it's going to pre-render those initial routes. I might still need to set those route rules.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and we've got our server. So you'll actually see in that output that we have now some HTML that's also present. So
Mm-hmm.
pre-rendered, we have got all the assets that we created,
Mm-hmm.
and we also have this some cached data for the blog posts.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think we should be good to go if you want to deploy that. Where do you want to deploy it? We support loads of deployment
Mm-hmm.
targets. So if you're having a look at Nitro,
Mm-hmm.
the deployment targets we support out of the box are everywhere from AWS Lambda to Azure, Cleaver, Cloudflare,
Oh,
all the way
yeah.
down to Netlify and that
Render.
sort.
Oh, cool.
The zero config providers are probably where I would suggest starting now, because the rest we have to do things like create accounts.
Okay, sure.
But
Sure. We
what do you
could
think?
do, let's do Netlify. Cool.
Sure.
Mhm.
Okay. So we can do this in two ways. One way is we can create a GitHub repo and push it up, and it will, and then we set it up in Netlify to auto deploy.
Mhm.
But probably the fastest way is just to build it with Netlify target
Okay.
and then just run the Netlify CLI to deploy.
Oh,
But you don't have to do that. All you have to do is, well, all you have to do is create a Git repo and connect it to Netlify. That is
yeah.
something you can do. You can also do this,
Mm-hmm.
and this way I can show you what it generates.
Okay.
So you can either set the preset if you're doing it manually on the command line,
Mm-hmm.
or you could actually go in here and just set the preset like this and pick one of the options if you want to see what comes out the other end.
Okay.
In the case, we are pre-rendering loads like all your blog, and we are now building the server.
Oh, interesting.
And what comes out is something in this .netlify folder.
Okay.
This is the format that Netlify needs it to look like. So it
Mm-hmm.
exports a handler function. And you can't just run this because it's meant for Netlify's edge,
Mm-hmm.
Netlify's serverless thing.
Okay.
But it should work if we want to deploy it. You should also see that in this dist folder, we've got headers, Netlify headers, which is how our API health is going to be configured.
Mm-hmm.
Got some redirects set up, so it's going to basically server render everything with that Netlify function that we created. But then we also have all of the specific pre-rendered pages that we wanted to be added.
Nice.
So I think all we would need to deploy is run ntl deploy, and we will create a new site. On my team, we're going to say
Mm-hmm.
TKYT demo. We're going to publish the dist folder,
Mm-hmm.
and it's patching everything. And this is the initial deploy, so it's uploading all of the files it needs.
Wow.
And I tell you, we've got to come to an end of this stream because I've run out of tea. There's a serious,
Yeah. Yeah.
serious problem.
This is a serious deep dive. I think this is more than a crash course on using Nox. Like, and you did an excellent job on everything. Really, I love it.
I'm
Yeah.
glad you like it. So
Yeah.
here you go. Here's your new Nuxt website. It's deployed on Netlify. And there you go. There are your blog
Wow.
posts. Everything's up. It's static. So that's, you'll see what's going on. Oh, we can't
Mm-hmm.
fetch that.
Yeah. Cause again.
Oh, no, this case, it is my ad blocker. Let's try that once more. It is cause. For goodness sake.
It's cause. Oh no.
I
Not
need I
not the best
presumably
of
maybe what I need
errors.
to do is add this to the as a site on Plausible.
Mm-hmm.
That,
Yeah.
that's the only thing I can think of. But anyway, but yeah, your site is up and running, and
Yeah.
what you can
Sure.
see is the like the actual stuff that's being downloaded. Like we've got this payload. Oh no, I need to. I could show you that as well. We could. There's an experimental feature I could enable called extract payloads, which I
Okay.
don't know why I didn't do it for you. But if you enable experimental payload extraction, then what that will do is extract the contents of that JavaScript thing at the end of the file.
Mm-hmm.
This script here.
Mm-hmm.
It will extract that into a JS file, which will be loaded in on root navigation.
Wow.
So that's definitely something that is worth doing in this context. But I don't want to. I don't want
Yeah.
to take
No, no,
us
no.
back
It's
in the rabbit
fine.
hole.
It's
But basically, if you want to see it working, so we could grab that URL and let's grab the health check.
mm-hmm.
And you can see that we're rendering this sort of via Netlify serverless function.
Mm-hmm.
That's being rendered now.
Yeah.
It has the cause headers that we wanted to be added to it. And oops, I don't want to deploy again. And what else would we want to do? We could access, I guess, blog is pre-rendered, but so you should see if we just access that what we're getting back. I'll just look at the headers. You should see that basically this is not hitting the endpoint. This is
Mm-hmm.
actually the cached version. You can see the age increasing
Mm-hmm.
because it's cached. This is a static file.
Nice. Beautiful.
Anyway, a hybrid site, and it's up and running.
Yeah.
And next time we should enable payload, extract static payload, and that will give you a bit
Uh-huh.
of extra juice.
Thank you. Wow. Like I said, more than a crash course. This is deep stuff, and you all have built something really magical with Nox. And I think the version is 3 right now, right? Yeah. 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 And
It's released.
yeah, sure thing. So I feel the DX is great because for one thing, you guys have taken care of TypeScript, so there's no config for TypeScript. You could do .ts files easily, and the types are really good because I saw that for the deployment target, if if I want to set that config, I see the list of all the places I could deploy, which is really helpful. So I don't have to guess or go to the docs. And the docs are actually also seen in Visual Studio Code the same way they are seen in the documentation site. Amazing. That is great. It's cool. And composables and pages, Nitro, the API routes. Great. Great stuff. Like, it's amazing. I think it's a complete suite for Vue developers or anybody that want to build like static websites, hybrid websites, SPAs, server side rendering. It's all taken care of. It's great. Like, I am blown away, really.
I'm really glad.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing, sure thing. And with the plugins as well, it was so easy to set up Tailwind, like just one module and Tailwind was up and running, and everything is so far superb. I like it. Yeah, so
Well, I'm going to keep an
mhm,
eye on
mhm.
your website and
Oh,
see if it is there.
do not hold me to it yet because I will, but seriously, like it's amazing, and I'm pretty sure a lot of folks that's going to watch this session are going to really love it. And yeah, so is there any other thing you want to say or plug? Because for your time as a teacher in TKYT, you could plug away anything at all shamelessly.
Okay, I'll be
Mm-hmm.
shameless.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the check out magic-regexp.
Okay.
That's
Uh,
something that I will
uh,
I'll plug. It's
should I share your
regex.
screen?
Yeah,
Okay.
go
Yeah.
for it.
Okay. Good. Magic projects.
So magic-regexp is a regex alternative. So you can basically write
Mm-hmm.
regular expressions in a different syntax. So if I
Oh.
open up the playground, you can sorry, it's taking a sec.
Yeah.
You can
That's fine.
basically use a slightly different way of writing regex. So you could do something like this:
Mm-hmm.
one or more digits grouped as major, and like a
Oh.
full stop, and one or more digits grouped as minor.
Wow.
So anyway, it's a syntax, and
Mm-hmm.
what you actually get is when you hover over it, you see the generated regular expression,
Oh my God.
and you get
Y-
type safe access to it as well. So
What?
you can see, for example, this one here, it knows that ID
Mm-hmm.
is one of the groups, but if you try and do something else, it actually it won't exist. It's not
Oh.
going to be recognized. Now this is not a TypeScript file, so it's not giving me a red underline, but it would give you a
Oh
red
yeah.
underline.
Wow.
And the thing for me
Mm-hmm.
is it compiles away. So when you actually create, when you use this, you get type safe access. Even, by the way, if you're accessing it as like um, a number. So
Mm-hmm.
if you try and access the actually it's a playground, I can do whatever I want with it. Right?
Yeah.
So we actually have the raw data here.
Mm-hmm.
So if I were to match it, I would be able to do something like match. Now here I can access a number to
Mm-hmm.
describe the 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 number, and you
Mm-hmm.
can see that this is actually going to be the bit that corresponds to the ID.
Nice.
And if I use like number 2, then that's going to match nothing, because there is no nothing that will match a 2 in this
Wow.
particular string. And
Do,
again, in a TypeScript file, if I rename this to, that's actually going to give me a type error, where it's not doing that yet for some
yeah.
reason.
I,
Maybe I need to set a
what?
TS config.
Do,
But the whole
okay.
thing compiles to normal regular expression. So actually, when you build your app, if you're using this,
Mm-hmm.
then what it's going to do is take the regular expression, which is still loading here,
Mm-hmm.
and it's going to replace the whole thing with it. So you would actually just get the regular
Whoa.
expression. So
Cool.
that is
Yeah.
check that out.
Yeah.
Regular
Sure.
regex.dev.
Regular expression is a pain. It still is a pain. And saying this, don't you think we need to have a session on this alone? Because it's no, like I could just at a glance I could see the DX already because you're having this chain of method call that reads easily than the cryptic nature of regex. We should do this. Like I'm going to definitely add it to the description and check it out. if you have time, we should definitely get on this. This is amazing work.
Let's make it happen. Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, sure, sure. Yeah. Yeah, so we are at time. So where could we reach you, after watching this? I love Nox. I want to tell you that Nox is awesome. Where can I reach you at? Mastodon, like you said, or Twitter? Okay, yeah, Twitter.
Come find me on Twitter or
Mm,
Mastodon as well.
okay.
My Mastodon handle is here, just
Mm-hmm.
Daniel at Roe.dev.
Okay.
Um, and I'm on Discord as well. If you're in the Nuxt Discord, that might be a good place
Okay.
to come to.
Yeah, sure. I'm going to plug in the Nox website, the Discord, and every other thing. Thank you so much, Daniel. Like, this was an intense and wow session. I was just going, wow, wow, that's amazing. I love it. Thank you for your time.
It's been fun. Thank you so much.
Yeah, sure thing. So, yeah, bye.
Okay. Bye.